again from Miss Maker. This little video today is all about threading up your overlocker. One of our most popular courses is getting to know your overlockers, and the thing that scares most people is getting those tricky little threads into place. So that's what we're going to be having a look at today for you. Okay, so to thread your overlocker, two first little things to think of are we need to move our knife out of the way. So I'm going to push and swing the knife down out of the way. Makes it a little bit easier to get to everywhere you need to for threading. What I'm also going to do is raise my presser foot to make sure all the tension plates are nice and open, make sure those threads go behind. Okay, threading up your overlocker, we're going to first start popping the threads through the top of the machine, getting them all set and ready to start the threading process. I'm working with threads that match the thread guide, so it'll be really easy to see which is which and which thread is going where. I'm starting by just bringing each thread through the top of the machine. So to thread the lower looper, we are going to be bringing our green thread, matching in with our little guidelines here. I've matched the threads to the guidelines. We're going to bring our green thread down past its tension wheel or tension plate. On some overlockers you will have the tension plates all lined up along here. On this particular model you've got those tension wheels coming down here. So we've got it round that tension wheel. I can feel that it's holding it nice and tight. We're going first to this green dot here, underneath the little clip. We now have two little holes to bring this thread through. You can sometimes do them both at the same time, as I've just done there. If not, do them separately. And now when you get your overlocker, it'll come with a little kit including a set of tweezers, and they are really useful for getting your lower looper nicely threaded. At this point some machines might have a little lever that you can pop your thread into to deliver it to the back of your lower looper needle, which is just here. On this particular model you do have to pass the thread through, and it opens up over on this side so that you can thread that lower looper. I'm going to take my tweezers and I'm going to pass my thread through to the other side. I'm then going to use my hand wheel, and always turn the hand wheel so your thumb's coming over towards you, keeping the machine always working in the same direction, and I'm going to move it until I can see that that lower looper is as far over to the left hand side as possible. And that means when I look round here I can see the small hole to thread it into at the back of that looper needle. I'm going to take hold of the thread that I've just threaded through with my tweezers and pull it again nice and long, and I'm then going to pass it back through to myself underneath here again, and just catch hold of it and pull it back through. Now I'm going to use that hand wheel again to move the looper all the way over to the other side until I can clearly see the eye of that needle, and I'm again going to pop my thread through the eye of that needle, and it's a little bit fiddly sometimes to get hold of that thread, so again the tweezers come in handy just to pull it nice and taut. You should see that thread running along the groove of the needle and through the eye. I'm going to pop my thread just underneath the presser foot, make sure it's going behind the needle like that, and I can now close this little door. So I've got my lower looper threaded up nicely. I'm just going to lay it across the top of the needle plate here so I can see I've got my first thread threaded. I'm going to now move on to the upper looper. So first we're round this clip here, round the little tension plate, and then we're coming down towards the pink dot here, pink thread to a pink dot. Through this one, there's a second one just underneath here, and then there's a little bit of bent wire that we pop it behind just before we thread that upper looper, and that keeps it just behind our lower looper, making sure they're going to cross over nicely when it comes to form stitches. So I'm going to pull that thread through this one. That's now sitting nicely. He pops underneath that presser foot too and sits alongside my lower looper. So we've got 2 threads threaded now, and that's both of the loopers nicely threaded up. Now we're going to move on to the needles. We've got our right needle over here, and it's very much like a sewing machine, the top assembly on these overlockers. So it's going to go down, up, down to our needles, round a little clip just here, and there's sometimes a second one just above as well that separates left and right. So we've got left and right here, and then that clip underneath. I'm just going to raise the needles a little bit so that I can pop that first thread through the needle. No needle threaders on these, unfortunately. I'm going to pull that thread through behind the presser foot. Make sure it's not caught on anything. And then I'm going to lay it next to the others. So now we've got 3 threads sorted on this overlocker. Last but not least, we've got our left-hand needle. So again, we're going to go round our tension plate, up and over, down again, this time into the little left-hand hook, down that little hook above the needles. And again, my tweezers might come in handy just to pull that through to the back there. I've popped it underneath the presser foot, and again just popping it out to the left hand side with all the others. So we've now got our 4 threads ready to stitch.
Now, not every overlocker is exactly the same, so I've added in this little section just to take you through a couple of variations. I have a different machine at home than I do in the workshop, hence the change of venue. So I thought I would add in just this little section before we move on to checking our stitches, so that I can take you through other threading possibilities you might encounter on your overlocker. Okay, so starting again from where we've brought our threads up and over the top of the machine, we have on this machine got a setup where the tension plates are all vertical and they're running along the top of the machine like this. The thread will come over, this one's going to be the lower looper that I'm doing now. There's a small clip at the top of the machine that we're going to pop that thread through. We're then going to bring the thread down in between this tension plate, and it's always worth holding the top of the thread and the bottom of the thread and giving it a little pull, and you should feel it slip between the little tension plate that's in here. It's like a pair of cymbals that come together and hold the thread, and you need to make sure the thread isn't just lying on top, but it's been pulled down in between. And here's a little close-up of that. So now you've checked that it's going down in between, we're going to bring it down and we're going to follow again the coloured dots, or it's always good to have your manual open so you can see the path that it's going to follow. For this machine, we've got an orange dot here. We've then got another one just under here. We've then got a little hook for it to go around here. And then this is one of the variations that I wanted to show you. If you've got a machine that this side doesn't open up, you can't access to pass it through like I did previously, it will have a little mechanism for delivering the thread to the lower looper. So on this machine, it's got a little pair of hooks just here that we put the thread round, and then a little lever that we push to move it across and deliver the thread to the end of that lower looper. So I'm going to do that just for you now. I pass the thread around the 2 little hooks. There's a close-up of this. And then I'm going to take that little lever and push it all the way over until I feel a nice little click. And I can now feel that this thread has been delivered to the back of that lower looper. Now this is in quite a good position for me to get to the lower looper's hole in the end of its needle. If it's not in the right position, don't be afraid to use your hand wheel to move things ever so slightly so that you can really plainly see where it's going. I'm going to wiggle it underneath the presser foot, going round past the blade at the front, and then I'm going to lay it out to one side just like we have previously. The upper looper is slightly easier, so the lower looper is always the tricky one. The upper looper is slightly easier. That's going to go underneath its clip again. Going to come past that tension plate, giving it that little pull to make sure that it's gone right down in between. And then we're going to follow the colour code up to the upper looper and pop that through again. And that one will be brought through, wiggled behind that blade and underneath the presser foot, make sure there's no tangles, and those two are then laying nicely out to the side, ready for the needles to be threaded, which we've already gone through. And this overlocker, just like the one previously, follows that traditional down, up, down, behind the little clip and through, left thread to left needle, right thread to right needle, just like we have on the previous section. Okay. One other little variation for your lower looper is sometimes you will need to pass the thread behind the lower looper, and right at the back of the lower looper needle there will be a little clip for the thread to fall into. So on some makes and models you pass it behind the lower looper to click it into place and then bring it back forward once it's caught and thread it as well. That is another option that I know is out there. Okay, it's always a good idea to check that manual, have a little look. I know sometimes the diagrams look a little bit confusing, but if you've got it alongside you as you go along, use a video like this. There's loads of them out there on YouTube. Find the one that matches your overlocker the best and just work steadily through it. And definitely practice makes perfect. Don't be afraid to unthread and rethread. Get over that little fiddly hurdle to make sure that you get really comfortable threading your overlocker. Okay.
It's all threaded up now. I'm going to lower the presser foot again. And a final check that I do before I close everything up is just to turn hand wheel, thumb coming over towards me to always keep that machine working in the right direction. And I'm going to double check by running a few stitches to see that the lower looper, the green thread, is going over the back of the upper looper to form that lovely crisscross. That's what forms the link at the edge of your fabric, and it's creating stitches, a little chain along that stitch finger there. Once I can see that, I know our machine is ready to run. I can close that up and run a little chain out to the left hand side.